We're talking law on Radio 97 with Despina Priala. And if you have a question to do with the law, big or small, Despina happy to help out. Just pop a couple of details and your question into an email. And the best way to contact us is to go to the website, radio97.com.au. There are a couple of ways you can get to us. So the easiest way is just to check out that website, radio97.com.au, and all the email address and Facebook page, contact, etc. Any way of contacting us, do it through the website, radio97.com.au.
Alrighty, so for segment 2 of Talking Law this morning, you may have witnessed or seen maybe these new billboards or advertisements, or maybe you haven't heard about it whatsoever, but Queensland have bumped up their infringement fees when it comes to whatever vehicle you're driving on the road, whether it's a truck, a car, whether you're a learner or a P1 driver. The fees are now going up, and it's by a lot of cash. So, Desi, what's the update?
Yes, so as you said, there are some new rules in place as of the 1st of July. Now, we're talking Queensland only, not New South Wales. And I have to admit, I didn't really know about these until only a few days ago. So I actually, if there was advertising, and I'm not saying that there might have been this big, huge awareness program before the 1st of July by Queensland government, I missed it. So if there was, I missed it. I didn't know about it until I had a link sent to me recently. As I think as being part of the profession, we got this link about and they called it the new tougher penalties for high risk driving behaviours. So if you want to have a look at the website, you can, and don't ask me what the website site is. I would just Google tougher penalties for high risk driving in Queensland, and then you'll see it all come up. And there's videos, and there's a whole sort of illustration of what the changes are. And then there's a nice little fact sheet. It's really interesting. They've got fact sheet 1, fact sheet simple, fact sheet English simple. So I thought that was a bit fascinating. And I think it's actually a little bit confusing. Not surprising with perhaps who's issued the fact sheet, but I found it a little bit confusing with the illustrations. I didn't see them match up too much. So you really have to read into it a bit. But anyway, I thought we'd go through it so people, if they weren't aware, they're going to be aware now. As of the 1st of July, we've got tougher penalties, and they're pretty severe. So the 3 main categories, we've got not wearing a seatbelt that's correct, or not wearing a seatbelt that's correctly fitted. Yeah. And I think that also extends to your child restraint seats as well. And then you've got a speeding category, and then you've got the red light camera infringements. So when I had a look, it was just last night to have another look. I've compared what was to what is now. Yeah.
Okay. And there's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, in some cases there is. So, for example, you're not wearing a seatbelt, or that seatbelt is not correctly fitted, and I suppose that means it's not buckled in, or maybe it's not over the shoulder, it's under. You know, some people when they drive, they put it under because it cuts their neck, or not that I know anything about that. I just see people driving sometimes like that. So, so the fine was $413. And now it's $1,078.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's an increase of $665, and it was 3 demerit points. Now it's 4 demerit points.
More than double. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's huge. That's huge. So that's that. Now speeding. So there's different categories. So, but in the category of 11 to 20 kilometres over, it was $275. Now it's $431 and 3 points. Yeah. So that's a big difference.
Huge difference. Yeah.
That's a big difference. So you really need to be aware of this. And on the speeding point, there are some other changes, 20 kilometres beyond. So, for example, 21 to 30 kilometres, it's $646 and 4 points. And if you're doing just 1 to 10, well, I shouldn't just say if you're just speeding 1 to 10 kilometres, it's gone up to $287 and 1 point. So the fine itself has gone up, not the demerit point. But the big one is if you're over 40 Ks. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be driving over the speed limit by 40 kilometres. But if you happen to be, it's now on automatic suspension of your licence for 6 months.
Okay. Yep. And I believe is it something like $1,600 in fines as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there is some hefty fine to go with it. So with the red light camera, that's the third big category. So if you run a red light, obviously you should never do that. But if that happens, it was $413. Now it is $575 fine, and 3 demerit points goes with that, which I think was always the case. I don't think the points have changed, but it's the fine again that's gone up. So that's an increase of $162.
Well,
yeah.
We've all seen some absolutely terrible driving out there. We can probably just about every day when you're out on the road, you can see some examples here. So I can imagine that the Queensland government will be in for a rather large pile of cash.
They'll be raking it in.
Yeah.
And if yes, you are right. And if you read all the information that's on the Queensland government's website, it does say where the money goes and what it's used for, which most of it, as my understanding is, it's put back into the system to continue the enforcement in Queensland.
Got you. Okay, and just to recap there, so that's obviously Queensland. So really those fines that we're used to or have been used to were sitting around, so if you were traveling 1K to 10, it was sitting around, I think, $150-ish before July,
something like that.
Yeah,
so
and now
doubled,
it's basically
doubled. And with the rate of inflation, as we've seen it, and the RBA keeps raising the interest rates, which we knew from the beginning of the year, and there'll be another one soon. People need to really be careful. The price of living or the cost of living is going up exponentially. You don't want to get yourself a fine now that these fines have almost doubled, in some cases definitely doubled as of the 1st of July.
And it's an interesting comparison too. Brooke looked earlier on just for a quick comparison with New South Wales.
Yeah.
And just using that between 1 and 10 kilometres an hour over the limit. In New South Wales, the penalty's around $120 or something like that.
I believe.
And so for Queensland, it's 280. So more than double New South Wales.
Yeah, that's incredible. So last week we said, why would you live in New South Wales? Why would you live in Queensland?
There's another reason.
You're going to have rules everywhere.
Pick a side, guys.
Yeah,
either way.
That makes it difficult. Yeah, do I live in New South Wales for the fines, or do I live in Queensland for some of the other rules? Yeah, it's a difficult one.
Well, but obviously such an important thing to highlight, though, because majority of us, myself, I cross the border every single day to go to work. So now if you
lots of people do.
Like so many people do here, on the tweet. So if you switch off for a moment and you go, oh, it's $100, 1 point or whatever, it ain't that anymore.
100%. 100%.
Speeding in Queensland, speeding in New South Wales, and double whammy.
And remember, and also in New South Wales, you see, they were more advanced than Queensland was with all of the mobile phone detection cameras. They were all in force over a year or so ago before we even got them.
Yeah,
so
very true.
Horses for courses. Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. Well, you can head to streetsmarts.initiatives.qld.gov.au to have a look at those new infringement policies in Queensland. Thank you again, Despina Priala from boutique law firm Priala Legal. If anyone does want to get in touch with you directly, Despina, where can they go?
They can always phone our office 55 291 294, or they can email info@prialalegal.com.au.
Thank you so much, Wayne and Despina.
And we'll see you next week.
See you then, guys.